Savannah was a college student when she met her husband. She was 18 and she married him the next year, thinking that forever was a simple concept. Yet by junior year of college, she's holding a newborn as her soon-to-be ex-husband drives off. Years later, she's a working single mother and she's found a man to date again. One night, 6 months after their first date, she realizes it's happened again. She's pregnant. But this time she's not going to let another man walk out on her because of a baby. She quickly Googled the name of the nearest abortion clinic and makes an appointment for the next day. They say the procedure is fast. They say it's harmless. You walk in, you walk out. What they don't tell you, what they don't mention, is that you're going to wake up crying, that there are therapists ready and waiting to help you counsel through the next couple days. And they never mention that there are going to be nightmares that haunt you for years to come. Pam could never forget the date. It lived in her memory every morning when she woke up and every night when she went to bed. And the fact that haunted her the most was that it was not an embryo that haunted her thoughts and dreams. It was thoughts of a little girl. This is a familiar story. A lot of women face it, and a lot of women come out years later talking about the trauma that preceded after an abortion. A 2000-year study by Professor of Psychology and Communication at the University of California, Dr. Brenda Major, found that every year over 2,000 young women have experienced abortion and regret their decision. Today, I will be presenting to you, the young Christian audience, an argument as to why pro-life is a fight that must be fought, why we need to know the problems that proceed from the fight for life, and the strong, purposeful ways to combat the growing pro-choice movement. Therefore, the following presentation is a claim of policy, a claim that will cover the facts that the baby in utero is a life, and the myths that surround the truth, thus proving clearly that life does indeed begin at conception. In 1984, an anti-abortion educational film under the name The Silent Scream premiered. The Silent Scream depicts the abortion process through the ultrasound, thus giving us a video of what it looks like in utero for an abortion to take place. The following is a description of someone who has witnessed the video themselves. In The Silent Scream, we saw what looked like a formed human being going through obvious pain and distress in an attempt to escape the destruction instruments of the abortionist. The mouth opened, and in what looked like a human scream. Those factors were indeed emotionally provocative. The drama on screen did not resemble removal of a tumor or a parasite from a human body. It resembled a murder. Does this really sound like a description Planned Parenthood tells the young, desperate women looking for answers? This is not the description of a parasite being moved. It's the murder of a child. The following testimonial is one from a woman who had an 8-week abortion. It was taken after a biblical counseling book, Women Counseling Women. I was handed what I believe was the smallest human ever. The embryonic sac was intact and transparent, as regards the skin, and the delicate arteries and veins were approximate to the ends of the fingers. The baby was extremely alive and swam about the sac approximately 1 time per second with a natural swimmer stroke. The tiny human did not look at all like the photos and drawings and models of embryos which I had seen, nor did it ever look like a few embryos I have had the privilege to observe since then. Obviously, because this one was alive. When the sac was tragically opened, the tiny human immediately lost his life and took on the appearance of what is accepted as an appearance of an embryo at this stage of life. The accepted appearance of what is shown to women who are looking for abortion. The argument that Planned Parenthood presents is that a life does not begin until it takes its first breath. But the medical definition of days in utero says different. At conception, the fertilized egg contains enough genetic information to control the growth of his or her entire life. A single thread of DNA from a human cell contains information equivalent to a library of 1,000 volumes. 5 to 9 days after conception, the baby burrows itself into the mother's womb for nourishment and safety. The baby's gender can already be determined by scientific means. From this time forward, the baby continues to grow. Does this really sound like an embryo that doesn't have a life? Day 15 through 70, the circulatory system begins to develop. Day 20, the brain and nerve cells are established. Day 22, a tiny heart begins to beat. Day 30, the brain is completed. Day 35, brain waves can be recorded. Day 45, the skeleton is complete and the brain begins to control muscle and organ movement. Day 56, the baby begins sucking their thumb. Day 63, the baby has a unique set of fingerprints, squints at the stroking of the face, and attempts to grasp objects with her hand. At this point, a baby can complete a somersault, a backflip, and scissor kicks. Day 70, she begins to swallow and frown. Day 77, she makes a variety of different facial expressions, including smiles. Day 84, the organs are functional and she's able to cry. Does that sound like a virus to you? These all occur during the first trimester of a pregnancy. These are undeniable facts that the fetus is not a form of virus or organ, it's a human life. Even the court systems recognize a baby as a life apart from abortion issues at any form of time of pregnancy. In 2004, Congress passed the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, which states that someone who intentionally kills or attempts to kill the unborn child, apart from abortion, be punished for killing or attempting to kill a human being. But why is an abortion different? Why is abortion the exception? The U.S. Congress voted unanimously to delay a capital punishment of a pregnant woman until after her delivery. Every congressman, even if pro-choice, knew that this unborn baby was a separate person, innocent of his mother's crime. No stay of execution was requested for the sake of a mother's tonsil or kidney. At the Medical University of South Carolina, a pregnant woman's urine test indicated cocaine use. Therefore, she can be arrested for distributing drugs to a minor. Similarly, in Illinois, a pregnant woman who takes an illegal drug can be prosecuted for delivering a controlled substance to a minor. This is an explicit recognition that the unborn is a person with rights deserving protection even from his mother. Therefore, the entire government recognizes an unborn child as a life that deserves rights and protection, unless a woman decides she doesn't want to recognize it as a life. Therefore, as can be seen through the presented information thus far, it is clear that human life is human life, regardless of stage and placement. The only thing that makes it different is whether a woman chooses to recognize it as a life. Another argument that the young Christian community will face is the multiple myths that surround the reasons why a woman should have a right to an abortion. The first and foremost is that a woman has a right over her own body. A woman does not have the right to her own body. If that was true, then self-harm and suicide would be legal, but it's not. But let's just say for a minute, the woman does have the right over her own body. The fact is that a baby, even in the mother, is not a part of her body. The fact is they might be intertwined, but they are not one. The fact is that if I was pregnant right now, my child could have a different blood type, different fingerprint, and 50% chance of a completely different gender. Randy Alcorn said, a Chinese zygote implanted in a Swedish woman will always be Chinese, not Swedish, because his identity is based on genetic code, not in the body which it resides in. A child can die in utero, but a mother live, and vice versa. How is that possible if both the mother and the child are the same body? Another myth that we as young Christian adults will face is that a woman has the right to an abortion if it's because of rape or incest. Randy Alcorn, in his book Why Pro-Life, describes a lecture he performed at a college university. He says, when presenting the pro-life position on school campuses, I've sometimes begun by saying, I am pro-choice. That's why I believe every man has the right to rape a woman if that's his choice. After all, it's his body, and we don't have the right to tell him what he can and can't do with it. After I let the shock settle in, I ask them to tell me all the fallacies of my argument. They point out the most obvious. that asserting the man's right to, I've ignored the harm done to the innocent woman whose rights have been violated. So I say, so you're anti-choice, is that it? After they argue more, I respond, so you're saying, if I demonstrate to you that a woman's choice to have an abortion harms or kills another being, you'll no longer be pro-choice. I cannot say that I know what it's like to carry a child inside of me, let alone one that has come from a very traumatic experience. But who am I to determine whether that life should live or not? A woman may have the legal right to an abortion, but one cannot say she has the moral right to deliberately stop a beating heart. President Roosevelt once said, "Never will I sit motionless while directly or indirectly apology is made for the murder of helpless individuals." In securing any kind of peace, the first essential is to guarantee to every man, whether born or unborn, the most elementary of rights, the right to his own life. Murder is not debatable. Thus, regardless of circumstances surrounding a pregnancy, a life is a life. As a Christian community, we have the right to comfort and weep with those who are weeping, and women who have been through traumatic experiences have the right to grieve for those experiences. But as we fight for them to have joy in the trials, we also have to fight for the life of an unborn child. Savannah, the woman we met in the beginning, could have had a very different life. But more importantly, that baby that she aborted could have had a life. In general, obvious evidence concludes that the choice to end a life is one that is remarkably immoral and unprecedented, giving legal, emotional, and medical reasons. Life begins at conception and is worth protecting. Therefore, I conclude that the Christian community stop picketing and shaming the women walking towards the abortion clinic doors, and instead point them lovingly to the cross. Several steps can be taken to induct educational resources from middle school through college programs, send calm biblical counselors to the abortional clinics, and raise money for more gospel-centered pregnancy centers. This is simply not a fight against a liberal mindset. It is a fight for the souls and minds of many babies and their mothers.